Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, so I think the next one comes from John Samari. Hopefully I've pronounced your name right, but if I haven't, I do apologise. As you know, I've said many times on the channel, I am the world's worst name pronunciator. And anyway, this is in response to love both the Yamaha SY77 and the SY99, and you should really keep the Roland D-70. Mailbag I did in December 2023. And John writes, a few years ago I bought a Roland D-70 with the keyboard chopped off for €20 or so. Looks terrible, works fine. I'm not surprised it looks terrible. This is actually my D70 sitting there. Because I've been working on that. That's part of the D70 project videos that are starting to go up on Patreon and then follow on to the YouTube channel. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, but this is kind of in the final phases of the project. So that's hence the reason why it's sitting in the studio and not on the workbench. Anyway, that's kind of by the by. What I said in response to this is that I've seen a number of D-series synthesizers, mainly actually the D10 and the D20, where actually somebody has taken an angle grinder to the actual synthesizer itself and made it into, how would I describe it, a bastardized desktop. And I do apologise for the language, but it's the only word I can think to actually describe it, because effectively what you do is you cut the keyboard off and all the keyboard controls, because you're effectively taking it, and then you unplug all the keyboard elements from the boards and effectively run it in what they used to call local off mode, which is effectively you switch off all the keyboard functions and just leave it effectively as a MIDI controller or a MIDI controlled tone module, which is essentially what the D10 and D20 were. D10 anyway, at least. Essentially, that's all that was. If you look in it, it's got the same board in it. It's just, they've in the operating system of that particular machine, you don't get a local on and off, but actually, it's the same thing. So, if you effectively unplug the keyboard, that's what you have. Now, I do think it is a shame that somebody did this to such a classic synthesizer. There weren't very many D70s in the market space because it didn't particularly sell well, because Roland marketed it completely wrongly. They marketed it as a workstation, they marketed it as an upgrade to the D50s and the rest of the D-series synthesizers, and it was really neither. It could not compete with the Yamaha SY77 and SY99, and it could not compete with the Korg M1. And as we know, the Korg M1 basically was the best-selling synth ever. So I do think it's a shame. I do think why didn't they, whoever did it, just buy a D110? It's not a D10, a D110. I apologise, I got that wrong earlier. But it could be that the keyboard was completely knackered, and the unfortunate thing about the keyboard on the D70 is it inherits the keyboard from the U20, and both of which were pads. So I've just done a load of work on the keyboard on my D70, but luckily mine was more relating to damage to the springs, how the springs were attached, rather than actually damage to the key bed itself. Now, John wrote back and said, actually, basically, my understanding when I bought the machine was that the keyboard was completely toast. So the previous owner decided that to project it out and made it into this tone module. And as far as John was concerned, you know, for €20 you probably couldn't go wrong. And I probably would agree with him on that. That for €20 you've probably got yourself an absolutely cracking tone module. The only issue you've got really with it is that if you take the keyboard off it, you've still got something that's a metre and a bit long, rather than something that's 19 inches long, which is what's 19 inches in new money? I can't. My brain won't think. So I pick up a tape measure that I just happen to have on the floor, and 19 inches is 48 and a bit centimetres. So 48 centimetres is some change. So you know, that's the difference between, and that is a metre-ish. So as I said, at that price, it's probably worth it, but it's such a shame because the D-70 is such a classic, iconic synthesizer. I like the keyboard on the D-70. I actually like the pianos, the organs on the D-70. It actually has some very nice sounds on it, but what it is not workstation, and it is not the D50 upgrade. Next comment question comes from YouView How To. Try saying that when you've had a couple of sherbets. In response to Yamaha SY77 using the diagnostic mode, a video I did in February 2024. And YouView writes, I have a Yamaha SY77 that always boots up in utility mode. Have to do a factory reset every time it is turned on, and after that it works fine. Anyone know what the cause of this is? Now, what I would say is I've never seen this issue on my SY77, so I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to fix it. The only thing I can think about is personally there is an issue with the battery, causing you to have to do a factory reset to effectively restore the synth back to its factory, and then it will work. Now, either the battery is not pushing out required voltage and the patches are effectively being lost, which is what you do. What happens when you do a factory reset is you're resetting the patches, or there is a problem with power delivery to the battery on the volatile side of the memory. But I've got to be honest and say, because I've never seen it, I've never encountered it, and you know, I only go looking for things to fix when they break for me. So my videos on project restoration are, well, these are all the things that are wrong with what I've got, so I then go and fix them. So if I haven't seen this one, I wouldn't have fixed it. But they're kind of my go-to guesses. Is that I would look at the things like, you know, on the 3-volt pin on the memory chips, are you getting 3 volts? You know, that kind of thing. That's how I would go about diagnosing this, to see if that is what the issue is. And maybe somebody in the wider community that watched the channel can sort of jump in here and say, I've seen this one, and this is what the problem is, or this might be where the problem area is, and help out YouView on his issue.